Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. Today is Monday the 9th of September 2024 and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of the show. We'll begin with the Afghan Taliban's unprovoked aggression on the Pakistan-Afghan border. Nothing new there, and of course the skirmishes that have happened between the two sides that have resulted in the deaths of 8 Afghan Taliban, 16 have been injured, 2 important commanders have also been killed. And this is not the first time that such skirmishes have happened in the border area. In the month of August also there were skirmishes that happened. Before, in the month of May also such skirmishes had happened. The fact is, despite Pakistan time and again telling the Afghan side to restrain their militants from crossing the Afghan border or from creating such skirmishes, there has been no stopping from the Afghan side, whether it be from the Afghan militants, whether it be from Afghan backed sources, and the whole issue continues to linger despite Pakistan's repeated requests to the Afghan side. Well, this will be part of our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the situation in Gaza. Today is day 338 of the war, the conflict, the genocide, the war against humanity, the crimes against humanity that have been going on since the 7th of October last year. More than 630 students will not be returning to school today because of the Israel's war. As far as the establishments also are concerned, most of the scholarly establishments have completely or partially been destroyed. Now Israel's bombardment is also continuing, whether it be in Gaza, whether it be in the West Bank, and the casualties also keep on increasing. 40,972 people have been killed since the 7th of October and 40,972 have been killed, while 94,761 have been injured since the 7th of October last year. Despite the continued statements from Antonio Guterres also to stop the Israeli barbarities, Israel continues unabated. This and more will be discussed in our second story. Then we will be talking about worldwide protests that are continuing against the rape and murder of a female doctor. Also nothing new there. India, which is now being called Delhi, which is now being called the rape capital of the world, is seeing more and more incidents, and this is why this latest incident that happened not in Delhi but in fact in Kolkata has raised a lot of alarm and concerns, not only within India but also across the world. As you can see, the protests that have been going on in different cities across the world. Finally, we'll be talking about a countrywide anti-polio campaign that has begun across Pakistan. During this campaign, children till the age of 5 will be administered the anti-polio drops. The Prime Minister has launched the campaign at a ceremony in Islamabad for the complete eradication of polio in the country. But despite the fact there continues to be cases of polio that emanate in Pakistan. This and more will be part of our show. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns Afghan Taliban, the skirmishes on the border, and much more. We've been joined by Brigadier retired Waqar Hassan. He's a senior analyst. Brigadier Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Brigadier Sahab, these clashes between the Pakistan security forces and the Afghan Taliban on the border near the Kurram district that has resulted in the deaths of 8 Afghan soldiers, including 2 key commanders, injuries to 16. Why are skirmishes like these happening? Because if I look at the recent past also, there is nothing new as far as these skirmishes are concerned. It seems to be a more or less ongoing activity from the Afghan side. Why is Afghanistan continuing with this aggressive posturing in your point of view? Can you hear us? Okay, so let's go back to the story. We're trying to get in touch with Brigadier Waqar Hassan. The thing is that Afghan Taliban have once again gone for unprovoked aggression on the Pakistan-Afghan border. The facilitation of terrorist attack on Pakistan by the Afghan Taliban is not hidden from anyone. We've seen different cases, whether it be now, whether it be in August, whether it be in May, and even before that. Along with these terrorist attacks, the aggression of the Afghan Taliban on the international border is now finally coming to light nationally and internationally. From the morning of the 7th of September, the Afghan Taliban fired unprovoked heavy weapons at the Pakistan checkpost from the Afghan region of Polosin, bordering the Pak-Afghan border. Pakistan Army gave a befitting reply to the firing from the Afghan side. Reports of heavy losses of Afghan Taliban due to retaliatory firing by Afghan Army was also reported. According to reports, 8 Afghan Taliban have been killed while 16 have been injured, while 2 important commanders, Khalid and Jan Muhammad, are also among the dead. Now, the country continues to experience increased terrorist attacks. We are calling about Pakistan as a total of 59 terrorist attacks occurred across the country in August of 2024 as compared to 36 such attacks in the previous month. These attacks include 29 attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 28 in Balochistan, 2 in Punjab, killing 84 people and injuring 166 others. Now, according to the digital databases of security incidents managed by the Pakistan Institute of Peace Studies, which is an Islamabad-based think tank. Now, we've now been joined by Brigadier retired Waqar Hassan Khan. Brigadier Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Brigadier Sahab, these skirmishes that have happened on the 7th between the Pakistan security forces and the Afghan Taliban on the border near the Kuram district is nothing new, and we've seen such skirmishes in the past as well. But what I'd like to understand is, why does Afghanistan continue with such aggressive posturing?
I think initially we've been discussing that there are 2-3 tools that they have to use against Pakistan. One is definitely terrorism that is being done through TTP or the Nawaz, and Pakistan is fighting it out. And maybe on the rest of whosoever is writing sponsored with dollars, they would like to keep the Pak-Afghan border, I would say, hot. And you can always create one reason or the other. Sometimes it is, trade being, let's say, shut down. Sometimes it could be smugglers crossing, and this time they tried to establish, their military posts in areas which are, I would say, claimed by Pakistan. Nobody had a post there, so they came, and I think they brought some troops, and also reports of they brought probably armor also, that's a few tanks. Definitely, Pakistan gave them a warning, the military, and that they should be vacated, being a disputed area. And Pakistan has a claim on that line. And then I think there was exchange of fire, unprovoked firing from the other side. And then definitely Pakistan army retaliated with effective fire. Report.
All right, we were in conversation with Brigadier Waqar Hassan Khan, and of course the communication has been cut. We are trying to get back with him. But as Brigadier Sahab also talked about, he talked about the whole backdrop of the incident that happened on the 7th of September, how it all started, and of course the aggressive posture that the Afghan side or the Afghan Taliban side, or those forces that are siding with the Afghan Taliban, or those who are being harbored by the Afghan interim government and their posturing on the border or otherwise as well. I was talking about the incidents that have happened across the country in the month of August alone. 29 attacks of those have happened in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, of a total of 59 attacks, and 84 people have been killed, 166 have been injured. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 29 terror attacks have taken place, claiming 25 lives and wounding 60 others. Security forces and the counter-terrorism departments of the police have also conducted 12 anti-militant operations in the country in August compared to 11 in the previous one. We also remember on the 5th of this very month, the DGISPR also held a press briefing in which he did talk about different issues concerning Balochistan, but also concerning Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in which he also talked about the Afghan interim government, the Afghan posturing, and what Pakistan has done in this regard, and how these terrorist activities are going on from across the Afghan border. The fact is that the Afghan interim government refuses to acknowledge the very fact that these forces are in fact coming from their side. They, whenever have been asked, have said that this is Pakistan's internal problem, when in fact it is the contrary. Whether it be the different analytic reports that have come out from the United States, whether it be the United Nations report, whether it be other different independent international reports, they have all pointed towards the presence of various terrorist organizations, whether it be the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, whether it be the ISIK, whether it be the Al-Qaeda, whether it be the ETIM, whether it be all the other terrorist organizations that are also present, that not only pose an issue for Pakistan, but also pose an issue for the entire region, for the entire Central Asian belt, and also for China and other countries. The fact is also that Iran has closed its border with Afghanistan since some time, and there are genuine concerns in other countries that border Iraq also, that such elements could creep in to their territories. The fact is that the Afghan interim government, for whichever reason, whether it be political or otherwise, or this brotherhood that it might have with all these terrorist elements, as has been shown by certain or talked about by certain analysts in the past as well, which does not let them take any aggressive action on that. The fact is that all of this continues, and that is why such aggressive posturing is coming from the Afghan side, whether it be in the form of these skirmishes on the Pakistan-Afghan border. There was one on the 7th, there was one in August, there was one in May. Although the fact is that some kind of a jirga had been established in the month of May, and a solution had been come to, but the fact is that since then this is an ongoing issue, and our borders have been struck by the Afghan side in the month of August as well as in the month of September. There's also another fact that adds to it, is the fact that the Afghan side does not want to accept the border per se, the fencing per se as well. Pakistan has almost completed a huge part of the fencing, and this is what irks the Afghan authorities as well, that they do not accept this boundary, as they say, which is in fact a boundary between the two sides. The Foreign Office had also in May this year conveyed its concerns to Kabul after a large number of locals were displaced in Kharaichi and had sought shelters in safe places in the wake of the clashes between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The fact is also that an FC official was martyred and 3 persons injured in an attack carried out in the Marghan area of central Kurram on Sunday. This happened not related to the skirmishes on the border, but in central Kurram as well. Militants had attacked NFC checkpost of the Tall Scouts and had managed to escape after the ambush. The dead body and injured personnel had been shifted to the hospital. The fact is that it is time that international pressure was put by the powers that be in the West, by the international organizations on Afghanistan, to stop what it is doing within Afghanistan by harboring all the terrorist elements, and also by letting them pass the borders and enter neighboring countries like Pakistan that has been helping them since decades. But in fact there is no reiteration of the fact, there is no appreciation of that fact. In fact, the reality is just the opposite. Let's come to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the situation in Gaza. We are on day 338 of this crimes against humanity, this genocide that has been going on since the 7th of October 2023. We've been joined to talk more about that by Dr. Saira Abbasi. She's an international affairs expert. Dr. Saira, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saira, Israel's siege of Gaza Strip has now entered its 12th month. We could have never imagined that a siege in Palestine could go beyond a certain time, and now it is in its 12th month. More than 630,000 students will not be returning to schools on Monday. 10,490 students have been killed. 16,700 have been wounded. 25,000 children have been killed or wounded. 90% of 307 public school buildings have been destroyed. 40,972 people have been killed. 94,761 people have been injured. And this is not even the true figure. The true figure might be twice, thrice, even 4 times higher than this, because there are thousands and tens of thousands of people under the rubble. And this adds to the misery of the people, and then there's a lack of water, then the lack of health facilities, the lack of food, the constant pressure by the Israeli side to move from one side to the other. Are these not blatant examples of ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity? And in your point of view, when is this genocide going to end? I've asked you this question before as well, Dr. Saira, but I am tempted to ask it again.
Thank you very much, Omar, for having me at your show. Answering to your question, the situation in Gaza, as you described, has immense loss of civilian life, particularly among children, the destruction of critical infrastructure. These kind of facts raises serious concerns, serious questions about the violation of international law. Many international human rights organizations, legal experts, political commentators, they all believe that Israel is committing all these actions as potential war crimes or crimes against the humanity also. And some of the experts also believe that these are the acts of ethnic cleansing due to systematic nature of violence against Palestinians. Moreover, the use of overwhelming military force in densely populated areas, which cause civilian casualties, and the intentional targeting of infrastructure necessary to the daily life, these all constitute the genocidal acts against international and of course the violation of international law and international humanitarian conventions. Moreover, I think the international bodies, particularly the International Criminal Court, ICC, and United Nations organizations, they could not do any tangible action. They just give the symbolic condemnation of the acts of the Israel, which could not, which actually give it Israel an impunity to take more offensive action, because they know that there will be no tangible action by these global organizations. And I believe that this is the global failure of when these global organizations are unable to take decisive action against the Israel's occupation and military campaigns against the civilians, and that further.
Yes, Dr. Saira, the fact is that also shows that there are certain extremely, how should I say, big powers who more or less, make the world the way they want to make it. Their posturing is in fact very important, and the way they want the world to move is the way the world is in fact moving. And despite whatever happens, despite the tens of thousands of people who are injured or are killed, the world keeps on moving in the direction that certain powers that be want it to move in. Coming to the neighborhood countries of Palestine, Syrian state media says that overnight Israeli strikes have killed at least 16 people in the central Hama province, which raises an earlier toll of 5 dead and 36 wounded. A Syrian war monitor had earlier reported 7 people to be dead. Late Sunday night, Israeli strikes targeted a number of military sites in Hama. Iran's foreign minister and its spokesperson has rejected reports by Israeli media that this facility associated with or supported by Iran was a target of the Israeli strikes in Syria. Nassim Vaturi, who is an Israeli legislator from Netanyahu's Likud party, says it's a matter of days before Israel's conflict with Hezbollah also develops into a full-on war. Lebanon's foreign minister Abdullah Abu Habib says that Israel had convened it not interested in a ceasefire with Lebanon, even if an agreement is reached in Gaza. There's also concern, a lot of concern in Lebanon, because there has been an uptick in violence across the border. Also, the US claims it has destroyed a Houthi missile system in Yemen recently. These whole aspects, Hezbollah, Houthis, Syria, Lebanon, are all but escalating the war. What are you foreseeing as far as all these different fronts are concerned? The apprehensions that we had discussed earlier in our discussions also, Dr. Saira, are they really coming true, that when we were saying that there's going to be an escalation of war?
Well, I believe that this situation that you have just mentioned in your question this represents that Middle East is escalating dangerously with the multiple fronts of the war, with several key conflict zones that you have just mentioned, for example, involving Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. And I think there is involvement of the Iran also, because whenever there is a target in Syria by the Israelis, most of the time it is targeting Iran also. There are various, things that are, I think, in the minds of the Israelis. One is that in the Syria, particularly, they want to weaken the Iranian influence in Hezbollah's presence in the region. Israeli officials, they often frame these actions as preemptive strikes to prevent weapons transfer from Iran to Hezbollah, which results in the growing casualties among Syrian military personnel and the civilians. It of course further risk and destabilizing the Assad regime also, which is of course the Iranians, which has the Iranians back. So Iranians, of course, they don't want any kind of, or they want restraint, because they know that Israel wants to expand the scope of the war. So although they are restrained, but that could, any time could lead to the escalation. Now, talking about the Lebanon and Hezbollah, I think Israel is preparing for a significant military campaign against the Hezbollah in Lebanon, because they want to dismantle Hezbollah's infrastructure in the southern Beirut and beyond. And I think that would have, if there would be escalation in this furthermore escalation, this conflict could have again devastating consequences for the Lebanon also. Now, talking about the Yemen and the Houthi front, we know that the US has also believed that the US has made a destruction of a Houthi missile system that highlight another flashpoint in the region. And because of the Iranians because they are near to the Houthis, so the US and its allies, they believe that there is a proxy war that is going on against Saudi Arabia and the US and the US allies in the region. So this situation across the Middle East suggests that Middle East is on the brink of a larger multi-front conflict, of course, which would be very dangerous.
In fact, it has become dangerous. It will not be, but it is getting more and more dangerous. It was already dangerous, but the way things are escalating, the way the Israeli side imminently wants to move towards a full front war with the Hezbollah shows that it wants to open various fronts, and it wants to involve countries such as Iran, and it wants to indirectly involve US in this war as well, and wants such an escalation of war that neither the US nor Iran can escape from, because it is all political at the end of it, because it is Netanyahu who wants to grapple to his seat, who wants to grapple to his prime ministership, and that is what is happening as we speak. For politics' sake, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are being killed, are being butchered, are being injured, and the world is just watching this with deaf ears and blind eyes. The fact also is that the situation as far as health is concerned in Palestine is also facing a lot of problems. There is fuel shortage in most of the hospitals. Two of the hospitals, that is the Indonesian hospital and Kamal Adwan hospital, risk to be closed down in the coming days because of a shortage of fuel. The fuel supply is not coming properly because the borders are being navigated by either the Israeli settlers or the Israeli forces who are not letting the correct supply of aid in the form of fuel or medicine to enter. Can humanitarian access, in your point of view, Dr. Saira, to Gaza be revived as per the requirement before it's way too late for that as well?
The situation in the health sector is deteriorating also. There is imminent shutdown of hospitals and the healthcare facilities due to the shortage of fuel, and due to the Nawaz inability to have the humanitarian access to the Gaza. I mean, these things make things very, very severe for the civilian population. So to avert a full-scale humanitarian catastrophe, I would say there is a need to take some urgent steps by the international community. There should be immediate and sustained humanitarian access, which would enable the delivery of fuel and other essential supplies, which are very, very important for the healing of the people. Secondly, ceasefire and access corridors are very important, because of course, even if you give the humanitarian access, if there is no ceasefire and if there are no access corridors, then of course that would not be given any results to the humanitarian efforts. But again, these humanitarian access and the ceasefire and the access corridors would not be possible in the absence of international pressure by the international community, by the international organization. If they are not into it, if there are no collaborating effort by the neighboring countries, by the international organizations, by the big powers, then there will be no solution to this problem. I fear that.
But Dr. Saira, look at the way the United Nations has also been rendered helpless in all of this situation, despite the fact that there's a United Nations Security Council resolution that was accepted by 14 of the 15 members, and the United States abstained from it. Despite that, it was said that this resolution is non-maintainable. What is the efficacy of organizations at the United Nations that are rendered in such a state that they cannot provide for the people who are being injured, those who are being killed, and the way this has been going on since the last 12 months is setting a new record as far as human rights is concerned. When in other parts of the world you have 2 people, 3 people injured or killed and the whole country stands united with them, comes out to protest. In this case, when you have tens of thousands of people who have been killed and hundreds of thousands who have been injured, and the lack of facilities, what are we seeing apart from protests within countries by the people of that? But the authorities, the administrations, the governments, they are not doing anything in that case. The World Health Organization, Dr. Saira, has recorded more than 500 attacks on healthcare in the Gaza Strip since this war began. Does it surprise you?
Yes, it's deeply alarming. I mean, again, it represents a grave violation of international humanitarian law, the destruction of medical infrastructure, the targeting of healthcare workers. These are not only ethical violations, but they are also like war crimes, and of course under the international statutes such as we have in place, like Geneva Convention, which explicitly protect the healthcare facilities and personnel during the conflict. So I mean, these deliberate dismantling of the healthcare infrastructure seems to me as some sort of additional weapon of war that Israel is striking against the Palestinians. This additional weapon of war is designed to weaken the resilience of the civilian population of the Palestinian also. Again, I would urge that there is a need for the response of a tangible response of the big power centers, particularly United States of America. If there is no such thing, then Israel is further, escalating the violence and doing whatever they want to do. As in IR, international relations, we say that most powerful states are the most sovereign states, and the less powerful states are the less sovereign states. So because they have the backing of the most powerful center of power, which is United States of America, so they don't pay any heed unless or until there is a tangible action, coordinated, collaborative action by the United States and its allies towards the Israel to stop this.
Saira, the United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights, Waqar, says in a speech in the opening of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva that Israel is conducting what he calls a blatant disregard for international law in the occupied Palestinian territories. Nothing new, we've been seeing that since the 7th of October last year. It talks about the International Court of Justice, it talks about the orders that came out from the ICC, it talks about the ICJ, but of course he says that Israel's situation needs to be comprehensively addressed, whereas Israel rejects all of these accusations. Do you feel Israel will be allowed to continue violating all the human rights laws as it has been doing since the last 12 months because important powers are backing it?
I've been discussing this in your newsroom since the past many months, that Israel is doing whatever it wants to do, and even if there is some kind of statement that comes from international community or United States, and the next day we get another news that they are giving them the political cover and they are giving them the military aid also. So that is only symbolic, because this is very hypocrite that one day they say that we are against the violation of the human rights, but the next day they give them the military aid. So that is the hypocrisy. Secondly, it raised serious concerns talking about the inability of the international law and UN highlighting the UN High Commissioner highlighting the about the human rights. I think that further raised the serious concerns about the effectiveness of the international mechanisms, because they are designed to hold the nations accountable for committing any atrocities which are violation of international law, which could destabilize the international peace and stability. UNO was formed because of this. But we have seen that there is repeated disregard for binding decisions from the entities such as UNSC, such as International Court of Justice. So this also demonstrates a profound gap in international legal frameworks and the actual enforcement of those norms. This is especially very troubling given the severity of the conflict in Gaza, where civilians, they have endured immense suffering. So we can see that there is a lack of robust international pressure, while the UNO and other international body continue to condemn the Israel's action, but these statements often lack the necessary follow-up, thorough sanctions, diplomatic consequences, or other measures that could compel the compliance of what they condemn. So the issue at hand is not just Israel's violation, but also the failure of international community to act decisively. And I would like to add another very important factor I would like to highlight. We have the responsibility to protect, which is R2P doctrine, where the powerful nations had joined the hands that if any such kind of activity by any state which could destabilize international peace and security and regional peace and security, so all the international community would have the coordinated effort to take that state held accountable for for their acts. But in this sense, in this case of Israel and Palestine, we haven't seen that, and there is a reluctance to enforce international law, which undermines the very principle of these legal bodies stand for, and sets a very dangerous precedent for the global governance also. So there is a big question mark on the global governance also, and the US-led international system. Although US is backing Israel, but I believe that by doing so, keeping a blind eye towards Israel, they are actually eroding their own institutionalization that they have made in the post-World War II order, and that could have far-reaching consequences for their own institutionalization and international order that they have made.
That you point out the post-World War II international order that the US has institutionalized, but the fact is that whichever conflicts we have seen in the past decades that the US has been involved in have gone in and have taken their course as per the US desires without nothing happening against them. And I will not go towards them, but of course I'd like to just cite their examples. And now we see another example in the form of this conflict that has been going on since the 7th of October. When you say it risks to have a dangerous precedent, it already is a dangerous precedent, and I don't know where it is all going to go from here onwards. For example, if the escalation becomes too severe with the Hezbollah in Iran, sorry, not Iran, but in Syria, in Lebanon, and in other neighboring countries, what could be the effects on the Middle East? And if the Middle East starts burning, what happens to the other countries? And if the other countries are engulfed, there will be reactions from the other countries, and this could lead to a huge war, all because Israel started aggressive posturing which was against all human norms and human rights, and that was backed by the US. Now coming to Hamas, now its official rejects US media reports that Hamas has presented new conditions as part of the ceasefire talks. Another issue that has been going on since quite a long time, Joe Biden, who had presented this 3-phase ceasefire talks, and which the Hamas had agreed to a very long time back, but Israel on one pretext or the other has always tried to not move forward as far as this ceasefire deal is concerned, because it does not suit their own methodologies or whatever their philosophy is vis-a-vis this conflict. What happens to this peace deal now in your point of view?
I think the peace deal between Hamas and Israel appears to be in a state of deadlock, primarily due to the political obstacles within Israel also. And of course, there is a need whenever there are the negotiations and when there are the mediation or any kind of diplomacy that has to be occurred to bring the peace and to sign the truce or agreement, uh, that needs to have the political will and the political commitment also, which we haven't seen here in the case of the Israel, because within the Israel there is also the domestic division inside the Israel also. So the potential for ceasefire or peace deal is, I think, because of the internal divisions within the Israeli society, the lack of political commitment of international community. I think for the moment, the chances of ceasefire remain uncertain as long as these internal political divisions and specific territorial demands remain unresolved. I don't believe that anything could happen, any positive thing could be happen.
You know what is also other measures that Israel is taking, which are statements that it is making also, which are going in a very wrong direction, is, for example, telling that Egypt is smuggling weapons to Hamas. Jordan and Kuwait have joined a huge list of Arab countries that have defended Egypt against these statements by Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Jordan's Foreign Minister says the allegations were baseless. Other important countries, the Gulf Cooperation Council has also condemned the statements by Netanyahu. What do you make as far as this development is concerned? What does Israel want to achieve?
I think these accusations are in attempt to undermine the Egypt's central role in ceasefire negotiations, and we have seen over this period of time that Israel has been using the strategy of the deflect also, and it wants to justify its own position while undermining the role of whether it's the Iran, or whether it's UNRWA, or whether it's now we have seen that it is putting accusation on the Egypt also. So what Israel is trying to do is, I believe, that they want to justify the Israel's continued military presence along the Gaza-Egypt border. And what is important is the response from the Arab nations, because that is another form of signaling, which signals a unified stance against what they perceive as Israel's deflection from the core issue and peace talks and de-escalation. Because Netanyahu, he wants to keep on pressing the core issue and putting the, they want to take the matter into the other domain. So I think this development is also very important in another thing which highlights a broader regional alignment, where Arab states now are pushing back against Israeli narrative that could strain the diplomatic efforts also. And I think this would be bad for the Israel also, because this unified condemnation by the countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Gulf Cooperation Council, this depicts a potential rift with the Israel. And of course, if there will be a rift and if there will be the continuation of the aggressive policy, that could complicate the Israel's relation with the key regional actors who might otherwise be neutral in or supportive in the broader geopolitical matters. So, and we have seen that now they have been developing their economic and the political relations also. So I think that would undermine the Israel's effort to normalize or to neutralize these states now, because there could be the possible rift in that matter also.
Yeah, I think we are going to see a lot of rifts in the coming days if the situation does not de-escalate. Thank you very much, Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi, international affairs expert, who have joined us, who have talked to us about day 338 of this Israel-Palestine conflict, 12th month of this conflict. So unfortunate, the number of people, children, women who've been killed, butchered, who are being injured, the lack of facilities, and of course the disregard by the powers that be. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. Worldwide protests are being held over an Indian trainee medic's rape and murder in one of the cities in Kolkata. We had talked about this in one of our earlier shows as well, but now more and more people are protesting, not only in India but also in different cities, 130 cities in fact, across 25 countries. On Sunday, organizers have arranged these protests to talk about India slowly and steadily being the hub of rape in the world. We all remember what happened in 2012 in New Delhi. We all remember what has been happening since, the little girls who have been raped as well. And the fact is that this incident of the rape of the trainee medic in one of the cities in Kolkata, who was just trying to rest after a 36-hour shift, raises huge concerns about the human rights situation within India as well, because these are what the protesters are saying, that if a woman trainee doctor is not safe in a hospital, then which woman or which girl is safe within the India or the Indian territories. That is why in 130 cities across 25 countries these protests erupted, wherein people asked for due rights for the women in India. Whether that happens or not is another thing altogether. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, a countrywide anti-polio campaign has begun all over Pakistan. This is a week-long anti-polio campaign in which anti-polio drops will be given to all the children across Pakistan who are below the age of 5. Prime Minister Shehbazsharif launched this campaign at a ceremony in Islamabad for the complete eradication of polio from the country. He inaugurated this campaign across 115 districts, aiming to vaccinate 30 million children against this debilitating disease. 286,000 polio workers will be going door to door to administer polio drops to the children. We wish them all the very best, and I really hope all the parents of all the children will cooperate with these polio workers so that their children are given the polio drops and they are spared from this debilitating disease. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. See you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.